This is Phanganist.com, and we are super happy to be joined by Chicago, who is part of 1200 Mics. I'm sure many of you are big fans. He's on Koh Phangan, which is amazing. I won't say too much because he is truly a gentleman who can tell us a lot of stories. Welcome to Phanganist.com. I'm very happy to be joined by DJ Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us.
What a pleasure.
I will let you introduce yourself.
All right, I am DJ Chicago, and I'm in this band, 1200 Micrograms. And it's one of the big bands in the trance world. And an awful lot of people on this island are not into Goa Trance or psychedelic trance. But for those of us who are in this scene, our band has touched people a lot over the years. So I was originally married. I want to go back to the beginning of the story. I was secretly married when I was 19 years old in university in Wisconsin in America. And then we got officially married between third and fourth year, 21 years old. And I got out and I was in a career in the advertising business as a young executive in my suit and tie in my office and my secretary. And so I was married and in a career, but right at that time, it was the 60s, the mid 60s, the explosion happened. And everything was changing and people started traveling for the first time and going overland to India and Nepal and Morocco and Amsterdam and London. That's what I wanted to do. But I was married and in a career, trapped. So what am I going to do? I was dreaming all those years. Then finally we decided to get a divorce, and she kept the house and cars and all that shit that we had gathered all those years and gave me a lot of money in exchange. And I wanted my freedom, and off I went, and I got to Tahiti, first stop, and met all these backpackers who told me about this amazing life around the world. The Traveler's Trail goes all around the whole world. Everybody's staying in the same guest houses, seeing the same highlight sites. So I thought, wow, and so I did it for 6 years, and then I got another job. That's a separate story, where I was traveling all over the world also, but being paid for it. And in those first 6 years, I was in Boracay Island, this fabulous island in the Philippines, and I met a guy, and he said, if you like Boracay, you have to come to this place, Goa. You'll love it. So I went there in '83 and fell madly in love with it. And in '83, it was the very last season of normal music at the parties. And that meant that we were dancing all night long, everybody taking something, the same somethings. And we were dancing to Tina Turner and Talking Heads and Billy Idol and The Cult, and it was fantastic. It was great. We had so much fun dancing to all that music. But there was the very first two electronic tracks were played, and every DJ played them at every party. And everybody loved them, and the next season the DJs took over and they said no more normal music, it's only electronic now. And there was lots of what we called body music, a different kind of, but electronic, psychedelic, trance, dancey music. But our music now generally is 145 beats per minute, BPM, but that was 120 up to 130, much slower. Very fun to dance to, a whole different story, but electronic and psychedelic and cool. So that happened all through the 80s then until the early 90s, and then Sven Väth started techno music, a genre called techno music. We had called our music techno for those 10 years because it was made with technology. But then he suddenly had a techno genre, so we couldn't call ours anymore. What are we going to call it now? And it became Goa Trance music. And right at that time, it sort of switched from this electronic dance music coming out of Belgium and Germany and Europe and became what we know more as trance music. And in the early 90s, all these famous bands started playing. Roger Ram, my best friend and buddy in my 1200 Mics band, had another band called TIP, The Infinity Project. And they were a big hit in the early 90s. In 91 they started making music, and there was Extreme and early GMS, Green Nuns of the Revolution. For any of you trance people who are watching, you'll recognize these names, the older ones. Total Eclipse and others that were making fantastic music. Simon Hallucinogen came out then. It was amazing music, also totally unique, different than anybody else had made. So that's trance got started as we know it then, but that was more of a melodic trance. All the tracks until about 7, 8 years ago had melody and music in them. And we loved it, and it touched your heart, and was something else. But then they started 7 or 8 years ago making music that has psychedelic sound effects, they call it, in it, instead of music and melody. So there was a split, because now our music, 1200 makes music, is called Goa Trance, or melodic musical trance. And after that, it's what they call psychedelic trance, and there's no more music, but...
So this is the difference between the two. I've always...
There's a split in the genre. So one is Psy-Trance and one is Goa Trance, and those both camps are very strong in their camp, and we feel that, I mean, the Psy-Trance guys, they know how to make very good dancey bottom, what we call a bottom. The kick drum, the bass, and the percussion. Makes you feel like dancing. We call it bass chakra music. Makes you feel like moving, no matter what. And whatever they put in the top, all these psychedelic sounds, people don't care, it's dancing. But we believe that music and melody can take you flying in different ways than those sounds can. And so that's what we're trying to do. So then, all through the 90s, Raja Ram arrived in 1990 for the first time, and he went to his first trance party, and he was blown away. Whoa, what is this music? And went home and started making that music. And then he and I were every year in Goa, both living in Anjuna, our village, and where all the parties were. And every 2 or 3 nights was another all-night amazing party, mad party. And so we were dancing like mad, sweating at the speakers for years and years. There was a big crowd of us we called the speaker family. And we had so much fun dancing, but we were always saying to each other, wow, wouldn't it be fun to make this music? We really felt like we understood and had ideas, but we didn't know anything about electronics, computers, synthesizers, any of that stuff, so we didn't know how to do it. Also for DJing, wouldn't it be fun to DJ? We felt like, but we didn't know how to mix or do anything or collect them. You know. So then in 1999, we got the idea, let's ask Riktam and Bansi of GMS, who were already big superstars at the time, what about making a new band? Let's try something. They said, sure, let's try it. And we made our first track, which was called The Blue Pill. It had samples from The Matrix in it, and it was very different kind of trance music than anybody had heard before. And it was a huge hit, and in Goa, DJs played it every single day. There were bars that had new DJ every day, and they all played The Blue Pill. So that was the beginning. Then we thought, wow, that was a big success. Maybe we should make an album. Anyway, our first track was good, and then we decided to make a whole album, and Raja Ram got an idea, and he said, we believe in music and dancing is our passion, but also we believe in consciousness expansion, opening the mind to other dimensions. And there are substances which you can take which open doors into other dimensions that we can't experience in our normal 5 senses, and they're pretty amazing dimensions. So we put that album out. It was also a huge success with everybody for those 2 reasons, and very special music and good dancing. And so now here we are 20 years later. We started in 1999, 2000, and the band played all over the world. Became one of the biggest bands in the trance world, and still is. And people love the music all over the world. We hear amazing stories from people of how it touched their lives and how they grew up with 1200 mics, and even here on the island, I'm hearing it all the time from people.
I met you and I had an interview with you.
Some are very excited when they, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. How does it feel to when you hear that you've touched people's lives like that?
Wonderful. I mean, what a thing. First of all, when we're DJing or the band is playing, we do live shows all over the world, and that's very exciting. Sometimes, huge crowds, 15,000, 20,000 people on the dance floor at these big festivals, and you see them all getting so high and so excited, and there's a lot of energy exchange. We're dancing with them, they're dancing with us. Same thing for DJing, and when people say all over the world, they come up and say those very strong things, how we've been a part of their lives, it just makes us feel so wonderful. What a wonderful thing to have touched people to the point that they are really passionate when they tell you about this. Wow. So great.
I watched the YouTube of you at, I believe it's called Sonic Dreams in Bangkok.
Oh yeah.
And the opening to that set actually was really moving.
I haven't
was
even
sat
seen
at my
that
computer,
video.
Like nearly crying. I'll
Really?
show you. I'll send it to you.
Oh,
It's beautiful.
wow. What is
yeah.
that? It's on YouTube?
Yes, it's on YouTube. Yeah, Sonic Dreams in Bangkok, and there's the
Okay.
female DJ Puffer P and Jack the Jackal there.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I understand now the music of the Goa Trance when I listen to that, like you explained, compared to the psychedelic trance. Now
Right.
it makes sense the way
Yeah,
that you've explained
there's a big difference.
it.
Yeah.
How do you guys make music as a band with the four of you together? Do you work actually physically together?
Yes, we do. We're all in the studio together, and the two young guys are masters of the electronics. They know everything, and they're really fast workers too. So Rajaram and I have ideas. Let's try this. What about this? And they know how to make it work in the track. It's an amazing four-man team going. But normally, first of all, we have a concept usually for an album. The first one was Consciousness Expansion. The second one was The Time Machine, where we went back to all different parts of history and famous places, Egypt and Stonehenge and all the future, and each track was built around that. And so we had a concept for each different album, and then we would get in the studio, and Riktam and Bansi, but particularly Riktam is really a master and very fast, and he would lay down the bottom. What I talked to you about. Get the kick drum, the sound we want for the kick drum, the bass sound that we want, and a bass line, and the percussion, and then off we go. And then he would write what are called sequences, which are little bits of music and melody, not sound effects. And so we'd get a number of sequences that were cool to put in the track, and then we would get on the synthesizer and go through a million different sounds. And when we hit sounds, stop that one, record that one. And then we get what we call an arsenal, and lined up all these different sounds and sequences. And then that's the first day. And we made almost all of our tracks in 2 days, which is pretty unusual.
Wow.
And the second day we put it all together. We come together and we go into a special space each time. And so that's how we've made them.
How would, this might be a very basic question for you, and I apologise, but how would you say the scene in Goa compares to the scene on Koh Phangan? Are there any differences or any different feels about
Huge
them?
differences. Well, first of all, I came here 5-6 years ago, and there was a trance scene still happening here. They were playing trance at the Half Moon Festival and at Bansi, and there was a trance crowd here, and before that. But now it's died out almost completely. And for those of you who know Goa, we are in Anjuna Vagator Chapora, which is the Trance Central, Hilltop Club, Curly's Bar, Shiva Valley. These places are famous trance dance places. 30 minutes away down the coast is a place called Arambol, and it's much more hippie-oriented consciousness, people who are on the path to higher consciousness, on the journey, and they're doing yoga and meditation and contact dancing, which is fun, but a whole different world. And they don't really like trance music. They are into more club music, which is house music and techno and this kind of thing. What?
It was 15 years ago, it was not like that.
That's how it is now. And all of these people, you see them all around the island. These people who are in yoga, meditation, contact dance, they have a special way of dressing. You can even recognize them. You know who's part of that crowd. So that's the main part, and I believe that 9 out of 10 people on this island are in that group and like that kind of music, and only 1 out of 10 of us like the Goa scene. And so I absolutely love Koh Phangan. Fabulous island, unbelievable magic of tropical. I mean, it's a world-class, world-famous tropical paradise, tropical island paradise, deservedly so. Unbelievable beauty all over here, and so many things I like about Thailand and about Koh Phangan better than I like about India and Goa, where you have a lot of Indians who irritate you for years and all kind of different things. They're really dirty over there, they trashy all over, and here's everything really clean, and no one will ever disturb you. In India, you have all these idiot guys who come to Goa to chase the girls and get drunk and make a mess, and we don't have anything like that here on Koh Phangan. It's beautiful. Everybody's very respectful and friendly, and so there's a huge difference. That's the only thing that I miss here on this island. I like everything else better here, except we don't have our trance scene, our friends and the trance scene, which is really something fun and a major part of your life. So that's what I miss here, and there's a big difference here. And on Hadrin Beach, actually, we had friends who are big in the trance scene now, who were here in the late 90s when the first full moon parties started going. And they had a gang, it was sort of like a commune, a community who were living on Hadrin out on the point out there. And they started making full moon parties, and this was electronic dance music. And that was the beginning of the whole full moon story.
And you first came to Koh Phangan in the 80s.
Yes, actually, we were at Phuket in the. I was traveling in those early 80s. I was traveling the world and all over the Pacific, mainly all of the islands in Southeast Asia and Indonesia and Bali and Australia and all over the place. So we were going to Phuket at the beginning, which was fabulous. It was wonderful, and there was only backpackers were there, travelers, and very simple bamboo hut places run by very sweet families. It was magical, but it was the very first place to get discovered by the travel agents. They followed the backpackers. Where do they go to the magic places? And they started taking over and immediately started encouraging tourism and building all these resorts and everything. And it started to change. So we moved over to Koh Samui and did that for some years. And it was wonderful. We would be traveling around, and we'd be in Boracay in the Philippines, in Koh Samui, and Bali, and moving around. And then it started to happen on Koh Samui as well. So we came to Koh Phangan in the 80s, in the mid 80s, and we were hanging around here. And if you go to Hadrin Beach and you're out at the sea looking at Hadrin Beach, on the right side and the rocks are some old, small wooden bungalows. They were there in the 80s already, and that's where we stayed. And there was no electricity and no transportation. You couldn't go around except hiking. And so that was our area, and it was magic. It was wonderful.
Did you start to come back and visit because trance was one of the first electronic music?
There was no house on Koh Phangan. The tent beside backyard.
Yeah.
And maybe Anahata, there was no house.
There's another fairly famous DJ in the trance world. His name is Antaro. And he was in Goa, and I knew him from Ibiza for a long time, and he was here, and he was saying, you know, when the Goa season finishes, come here. So I came. So that was 5 or 6 years ago. I hadn't been for a long time. And we stayed here, and then we went traveling around in his car to Cambodia and did some trance story there. But yeah, so I was very happy to be back here, but I lived in this area down Bantai, Bangkai, and still we didn't travel around so much, and I didn't get over on the west coast where most of the action is now for a lot of the travelers. But I accidentally ended up here. I'll just say this. My son half Israeli and half American. He's never lived in Israel, but has been there a lot. And he grew up in Ibiza, in Goa and Ibiza, and then he went to university in Amsterdam the last 5 years. And then I've been dreaming my whole life about going backpacking with my son.
Great.
To have him discover the amazingness of adventure on the road, you know. Fantastic life experiences. And so he came to Goa this season, and we lived next door to each other in Anjuna and had a great time. And he loved Goa. Now he's a young adult and experienced it different from all his kid years. And he got a girlfriend while he was there. And then I had a gig up in Pai in the far north of Thailand, up by the Burmese border, on March the 10th. So I came to play that gig, which was the very last gig because Corona just hit after that, and it was a really fun party. And then I had a booking for Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam for March the 20th. And we were going to fly all together and go there and then do Vietnam. And at that moment, the COVID hit. And my promoter in Vietnam said, you better not come here because they're closing up and you might not be able to get back out. Mm-hmm. So we thought, all right, we'll better skip that for the moment. Everybody thought maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, this thing will be over. Life will continue and we'll be able to do. So we were up in Pai. We had a nice couple of weeks there, but then Thailand was talking about closing travel between different states. And we thought, oh, what if we get stuck here in Pai? We better go down to Koh Phangan. We shot down here, and lucky we did because here I am 8 months later. I love it, it's fantastic, but just by fate, by accident, I ended up here. He came here too, but stayed here for about a month, and then he went back to Ibiza. Hello!
I'm from India.
Yeah. How has it been? Would the summer months usually be your festival season? How has it been for you guys?
Well, it's an unbelievable phenomenon for everybody around the whole world, and whatever your profession is, and all of us. We had money coming in all the time, and you just sort of thought that you could turn the faucet on, and we just were playing all over the world all the time, and money coming in, and then what a shock, suddenly it just stops. Luckily, I saved pretty well the last 20 years. Thinking ahead, I'm getting older, I'm 74 now. And maybe I better look out for my future. So luckily I saved, but a bunch of people didn't save. They were living from gig to gig, you know, money just constantly coming in, and we didn't think it would stop. And suddenly it stopped, and they have mortgages and children in school and all kind of things, and no work coming in. Again, we thought it would be a few weeks or a few months, and now they're saying 18 months to 2 years. Probably before they allow festivals and mass gatherings happening again. And I just posted on Facebook yesterday. One expert said, sorry, it'll be maybe 5 years before it gets back to what it was a year ago in 2019, and maybe never ever again like we knew it before. What a shocker. So, I mean, it's a terrible thing for all of us. I mean, we had so much fun at the parties all around for us and giving people pleasure all around. Everyone is missing dancing and fun, and it's unbelievable that we can be here on this island and have all these parties going on nonstop all through the months. Every week there's lots of parties happening.
A lot, yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not trance parties for us, but still, they're really fun parties and everybody having it going for it. And it's one of the very few places in the world. I mean, we go to Wainam. For anybody who doesn't know, it's this beautiful little cove. You have to take a boat from Hadrin and go over there, several bays. It's a little cove surrounded by jungle-clad mountains and a beautiful little white sand beach, and we make parties there every Sunday. And all the girls are in bikinis and everybody dancing around, and it's a mad scene, and this is not happening anywhere in the world. Goa, Ibiza, or anywhere. So we are so lucky and blessed, and I'm just so happy to be here. And one of our mantras is acceptance and being a positivist, those two things together. And whatever is happening in your life, you try to accept it and adjust and be positive for whatever the good things are happening. And I love this life here. I mean, it's a magical life. I feel a little bit stuck because we were traveling all the time. all over the world, from Goa or from Ibiza or wherever. We were always on the move. What fun! You're in a new culture, a new country, and new foods, and everybody's looking after you very specially because you're the entertainment, and it was great. And now suddenly we're just in one place. I'm so happy to be in this one place. It's the best place, I think, to be, but still we're kind of stuck here. We went last week to Krabi for 1 week. On the other side, it has all these famous limestone karst mountains that were filmed, featured in James Bond movie and Leonardo DiCaprio's The Beach movie. So that was really fun to get away off the island just for a week and see something new. But I'm loving it here and so happy that if I have to be stuck anywhere, this is where I want to be stuck.
Good. Yeah, I think we all feel like that, don't we? Yeah. What do you enjoy to do whilst you're on Koh Phangan?
Well, I mean, first of all, just riding the motorbike. I'm just thinking that one of my son is in a car in Ibiza, and he had a bike in Goa and loved it, and it is such a pleasure of life to ride around on the bike and in this paradise of tropical paradise, magic, wherever you go every day. I mean, I don't have to do much any day, and I'm just out on the bike, and wherever you're leaving, you go, wow. I mean, it's world-class, mind-blowing tropical scenery. So I go every day to Little Cookie's restaurant, where I just left from, and I have breakfast over there. It's a 12-minute beautiful ride down there along the coastline, and I have my breakfast there. And then I cruise around a little bit, and I love to explore different back roads. Every road you go down is magic, you know, it's unbelievable looking around. And yeah, I have lots of friends, go visit the friends. I'm a big ping pong player in Goa and here, and we're playing ping pong up in Chaloklan lots of times. And Seaboard every Thursdays. I like to go to these parties, even though it's not trance music and I can't get into this other music and dancing. I dance a little bit, but it doesn't really, you know, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Is it too slow
When
for
music
you?
is not making you dance, when you have to make yourself dance, it's a terrible thing. And everybody knows this. Sometimes you really feel like dancing and the music isn't making you feel like dancing. You're forcing yourself, you're doing your exercise, but somehow something is missing. But I still love to go to these parties because it's a wonderful atmosphere. Everybody else is having a great time. They're on the dance floor. Yeah, they're blasting away. It's so much fun, and all kind of crazy things going on, and lots of sexy girls around, and watching the fun dancers. And so I go to a lot of these parties, including I was living next door to Seaboard, so every Thursday they have their dance party, and I love to be around the party. So I would party a lot here too, and I'm never bored. I've never been bored one time here. And I live right on the beach. My bungalow is like this, and that's the beach right there. And I love that. There's the sea and the sunset, and you're on the beach. That's my fantasy come true, actually.
Yeah.
I lived all those first 6 years in huts on beaches, all these different wonderful places. And I love that. It's very simple living. Small living, but wonderful life for me. I'm very happy.
Sharon, do you have any other questions?
No, I love this interview.
Yeah.
But what do you think the trance is going to in the next few years? The trance is already for 30 years? 30 years around?
Yeah, in 83, 84, this electronic music
More like
started,
acid,
and
piano.
yeah, and in 92-ish, it became trance music as we know it. So it's about 20 years now of trance music. Who can say what's going to happen? I mean, first of all, with all this, we wonder how are they going to start getting just the dance scene going, the club scene all over the world, and how will we be booked, and how will they have enough people to come to pay the money, to pay the prices, and all this stuff. It's looking very dodgy. We don't know what's going to be happening. And I mean, this was a new big change in trance when they switched from Goa melodic trance into psychedelic trance. It was a huge change. Has a lot of big fans. A lot of people really think it's psychedelic. For me, it's not. But a lot of people find all these weird sounds, take them to special places. There's another, and all kind of subgenres we have progressive trance, which is, we play 145 beats a minute, but it's 136, 138, and much more popular with this kind of crowd around here. It's easier to listen to, it's more social, it's less intense and psychedelic. And then there's what's called high tech. Oh my God. You haven't heard of high tech?
No.
Well, most trance for years has been around 145 beats a minute. It was the average. We thought it was the ideal. Somebody's here. We thought it was the ideal BPM for dancing, and it probably is. But some started making faster music, 148, 150, and then they got a whole new genre about 10 years ago now, and it's called high tech.
Mm-hmm.
And high tech is 170 to 220 beats per minute.
That's a big jump, isn't it? It's a huge jump.
We call it machine gun music. You know, the drums are the bottom, and then they're putting all these weird sounds and some people on certain substances, they really get off on it. It got to be pretty huge around the world, and a lot of us can't stand it and hate it. In the neighborhoods, they hate it. You know, drive you mad trying to listen to that all night long. But that's a big thing. So there are all these little subgenres of trance as well happening. There's forest and there's progressive and deep progressive and different things. So we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody has an idea. We live in hope. I'm 74, so we've had an unbelievable, amazing life, and trance life as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, all right.
You.